Welcome back to Rachel's Enchanting Cakes. Now today we're going to make this adorable Christmas boot, no cake carving required at all, because I'm using a fantastic piece of innovative equipment. There are already separate tutorials available to make the bear that I've placed on the top and the adorable Rudolph sat on the cake drum. This is perfect for any new bakers. You will be surprised at just how simple it is, and everything you need is described in this tutorial, and you will find links in the description below. Happy baking, guys, and let's make a start. So to make the cake so easily, I am actually using one of Molly Robbins' Creature Creator kits. You will find a link to her site below this video, and it's the laying down mould. It's very, very easy to achieve this effect, and I have a couple more tutorials available on my YouTube channel creating both a lazy unicorn and a duck cake using this very versatile mould. Start by greasing your mould with plenty of butter. The more butter you add, the less likely your cake will stick. Now you want to add a small amount of self-raising flour and your cake batter. Here I am using my classic Victoria sponge recipe, and you can find a separate tutorial to this to make the correct amount of batter as a link just below this video. So my cake has been in the oven now for 40 minutes at 170 degrees centigrade. I have left it to cool slightly, and I am just trimming off the cake on the top before I release it from the cake mould. Simply take a cooling rack and place this upside down on your cake. You then want to flip this the other way around. And now you want to gently release your cake from the mould. Don't rush doing this. Just take your time until the cake comes away freely. Here I have made one batch of my buttercream recipe, and I will leave a link again for that for you just below this video. Now you want to take 1/2 of the cake and apply plenty of buttercream or ganache, whatever filling you are choosing to use. Now simply take the other half of the cake and place it directly on top. This is just before we cut a very small amount away so it's nice and level and can fit on that cake drum lovely. So for this to sit nicely on a cake drum, you just want to trim off a very small amount of cake off the bottom. I'm then going to place on some buttercream just underneath. This will help keep it in place whilst I crumb coat. Now you'll see 2 bumps on either side of the cake. Now I choose to smooth these out a bit by just cutting a very small amount away. But in all honesty, I think once it's all covered with buttercream and fondant, it really wouldn't matter. So if you don't want to trim anything away, then I don't think there's any need to. Now simply crumb coat all of your cake with the buttercream. For a handy little tip, just to get your buttercream really, really smooth, especially on strange shapes like this, if you take some cling film, wrap it over your cake, you can then use your hands to physically smooth out that buttercream. I'm then going to place this in the fridge for a good 45 minutes, maybe an hour, just so that buttercream can go lovely and hard, and I'll physically be able to take that cling film away, and then we can add the fondant to the cake. So my cake is lovely and chilled, and today I am using the Renshaw's Extra Red because it's absolutely beautiful, and it can be very, very difficult to create a red colour. I've got my 5mm spacers and a rolling pin, a couple of smoothers and a sharp knife. So in total I have rolled out 800 grams of my fondant in between the 5mm spacers. I'm now going to simply drape this over the cake. negotiate any pleats, and the two sections at the back where they will meet, you will see this in the footage that I speed up for you, I simply cut away with a very sharp knife. It will leave a slight mark on the fondant, but it's something that we can cover with decoration a little later on. For the front of the boot, all I have done is rolled out a small amount of black fondant. Now this is shop bought black fondant. It's Renshaw's because again black's a very difficult colour to make. Simply place it on the front of the boot first, cut it down and then stick on with some cooled down boiled water or edible glue. Now I want to place a rim around the base of the boot and I'm using a steamer. Don't worry if you don't have a steamer, again you can just use edible glue. Here I have a ribbon cutter. Again, the more you've been cake decorating, the more tools you will have. But don't worry, if you don't have a ribbon cutter, you just cut strips with a knife and use a ruler. But take your time with that, it can be a bit more time consuming. As you can see, with a ribbon cutter, another great investment in your cake studio. It's very, very, very easy to do. I'm just making sure here that it's cut correctly because I've chosen the perforated side. As you can see, it just comes away really easily. It's all the same size, and then I'm simply just going to wrap it around the base of that shoe. So all I have done here is added an extra rim using my ribbon cutter, but now we're going to get using these moulds. Now I've got two basic moulds. One is from Lakeland. This is a button mould, but they are available in many different places. And one of my favourites, the ribbed border mould by Marvellous Moulds. This will give us the wool effect. In order to use these moulds, it's really simple. Start by adding some Trex vegetable fat, and then I like to sprinkle in some icing sugar. Once you have done this, place in your fondant and push down really well to pick up all of that detail. You want to take your time doing this, and the higher the quality of the fondant, the easier it is to remove from the mould. I then simply flip this upside down and I use my rolling pin again to pick up more of that texture. If you use your rolling pin on the top as well, this will get rid of any excess just along the sides. Remember, I'm only using fondant here, not modelling paste. I'm just using a high quality fondant, and that's why it removes from the mould so easily. Again, I'm using a steamer to stick everything to my cake, but you may not have one of these, so you can just use edible glue or even cooled down boiled water. So all I've done firstly is cut out a circle shape, again in my white fondant, to place directly on top. I'm then going to add my ribbed border around the top, and any extras I'm going to place along the bottom of the shoe where the toes are. And you remember those marks that I mentioned further towards the beginning of this tutorial down the sides where we cut away? I hide those using this beautiful woolen texture. Now you may not have this mat, so you can always improvise, maybe just cut some strips, make it look a bit more effective yourself, and then I'm just going to add a few buttons. It really is as simple as that. Creating something really effective doesn't always have to be complicated. I will speed this process up for you so that you can see me add the different elements to the cake, and then we'll get on to adding it to that beautifully decorated cake drop. So this is what I now have. You can see where I have covered that rim up, that little mark that we had from the beginning of the tutorial. It's really simple to do. I've added a few extra buttons. You can add as many buttons as you want, as many rims. Just go crazy with it. Have fun. I'm now going to place this in the fridge so that all the fondant can go lovely and hard. This way I will physically be able to lift this boot up and place it directly onto a cake drum already covered in fondant. So my cake drum has set. I have left this to set overnight, and here is my refrigerated cake. I simply slide it off the cake board, place my hand along the back. Remember, this fondant's lovely and hard. Pull away the baking paper and physically place it directly onto the cake drum. That's how easy it is. Yes, this cake will now sweat, but it's only condensation. It won't actually damage your cake. It just takes a while to reach room temperature and it will soon dry out. Time for a few magical finishing touches. So I want to add some food contact glitter to the cake drum. And to do this, I'm again using my steamer, and then I'm going to add a small amount at a time. If you don't have a steamer, when I didn't used to have one right at the beginning, I just used to use edible glue. Now, I normally add the food contact glitter before I add the cake, but it was a bit difficult to make a template for the cake to make sure none of the glitter ends up stuck all underneath the cake. So I'm doing it this way instead. Simply sprinkle it directly onto your surface, so it's either covered with water in my case, or you've covered it with edible glue, and then just brush it so it's all nice and even and completely cover the cake drum. It adds such a beautiful, magical effect, and it's completely food safe. Now it's time to add the edible sugar model. So here I have Rudolph. He's available as a separate tutorial, and you'll find him in the description below this video. And our lovely 3D Me To You bear with his little hat, and I'm going to place him directly on the top. I think we now just need a few snowflakes, a few edible pearls, and this will be complete. For the snowflakes, I'm just using these fantastic plunger cutters, and then off camera I simply add a few edible pearls and also pour the edible pearls into the top of the Santa's boot. It really is as easy as that. And there we have it. Thank you all for your continued support. Be sure to check out the Christmas playlist, as there are plenty of different Christmas cake tutorials and ideas on there, including Rudolph and the Me To You bear. And I will be back soon, everyone, with more new, free content.